Hello and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval and I am your host. And today we've got, so the background around our topic today is that this week I was just sitting around. It was after our last group meeting, our men's group meeting, thinking about some of the biggest mistakes that I feel that I made during and after my divorce. And I was talking to another friend of mine who's a regular at the meeting about that. And so what I decided to do, and I know that I talk often about things, a little bit about things and interject things about my divorce and post-divorce that have gone on with me, but I don't know that I've ever just sat and talked with y'all about some of what I feel are the biggest mistakes that I've made during and after my divorce. So that's what I'm going to do today. It's going to be a little bit raw. It is definitely mostly all unscripted, unlike most of the solo podcasts that I do and I share with you. So before we jump into that, the show notes today are: number one, the app is up at the Play Store or the Apple iTunes Store. You can find it at thedivorcedaddvocateapp.com or go to the website at thedivorcedaddvocate.com under the Get the App tab. Now, this is wide open right now because the developers are still working on finishing it. I know I've been saying that for weeks and weeks, and apparently in developer speak, it should be done this week, means maybe in a month or so, or this shouldn't take too long, means 6 months. Anyway, sorry not to slam any of you developers listening out there, but it's almost there. But the good news for you is that the app is absolutely 100% free and wide open right now. There are over 50 different courses on there for you to look at. And so I'm looking at it right now. You can jump into courses on mindset or emotions or physical fitness. There are all kinds of opportunities. And because we talk a lot about making sure that you're taking care of your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual selves through this, it's a great opportunity right now to go download the app. You can utilize all of these courses right now. You can do as many as you want, whenever you want. That's the cool thing about apps, right? Is you can do this at any time you want. You're not beholden to a schedule or a class or a workshop. You can just work through these whenever you've got some time. And we're going to be adding some more things. We'll be doing some group meetings, some classes, some events through the app as well. And then eventually it's going to become more robust. We're going to be offering more things, have some notifications for you, et cetera, and be communicating directly. But right now it is wide open, 100% free, and there are a ton of resources. So please go check it out. Download it at thedivorcedaddvocateapp.com or at the website at thedivorcedaddvocate.com under the Get the App link. Second show note, the divorce quiz is still up, and if you haven't taken it yet, please do. It's going to give you a great gauge as to where you're at in your divorce process compared to others who have gone through it. It takes about 10 minutes. Very short, very sweet. It's going to give you an immediate result. You can look at that. And then also, if you want to review those results or even just talk about anything that's going on with your divorce, you have a free opportunity, no obligation, to schedule some time to chat with me. So check that out at thedivorcequiz.com or at the website at thedivorcedaddvocate.com under the divorce quiz tab. Two awesome resources. We're growing and growing this community for you guys. So I really hope that you'll utilize some of those and share those with other divorced or divorcing dads that you may know. All right. So the title of this week's podcast is the 5 biggest mistakes I made during and after my divorce. Now, I truly feel and believe, and this was a realization that I had after a while post-divorce, I would say years down the road, that I don't regret anything that happened or any of the decisions that I made. So, and I truly feel that life is always happening for me and not against me. And that's incredibly difficult and challenging to grasp a lot of the time, particularly when you're in this difficult, painful, challenging time frame of divorce. But I wanted to look back, and I just sat and I reflected a little bit on, if I could go back, and if I had to, if I had the ability to say, okay, well, I would like to see how this might work better for my life if I changed this decision I made. Now, there's no way, obviously, to know if changing one of these decisions would have worked out better or worse. It's just kind of, it's just kind of a reflective exercise for me, but it also might help you in taking a look at and paying attention to some things that potentially you wouldn't think about, especially when you're in the midst of all of it, right? We always say you don't go through, or you don't do anything perfectly the first time you try it. And hopefully you're not going through divorce more than one time. So have some grace with yourself. Going through this is challenging for every single person who ever goes through it, because it's probably likely the first time you've gone through it. And even if it's a second or third, you're still not good at it, and it's challenging and difficult. So the first, what I would consider biggest mistake that I made during my divorce was to blindly trust my attorney. Now, I just want to say up front that this isn't a slam on any attorneys that are listening, because attorneys do, a lot of attorneys do a fantastic job. And I would say the majority of attorneys get into family law for altruistic reasons and are truly wanting to help families, help you get through this process. But in saying that, they are most definitely limited in their scopes and in their scope of what they do and their abilities to be able to help you in this process. And what do I mean by that? I mean that they know the law. They know the family court law. They know the system. They may even know some of the magistrates or the judges or some of the other players that are part of this system. But that is the limit that they know. And when you hire an attorney, that is just one component, and we've talked about this many times on the show, just one component of, or one member, you could say, of the team that you're going to have to build and put together in order to effectively get through this process of divorce. And when I say get through, that means many, many things. It's not only just the legal part of this, but getting through things like changing your schedules, changing your environments, changing your mindset, doing all of these different things that happen when everything gets flipped upside down during this divorce process, when you're separating homes, when you're changing schedules, whatever you might be doing. So the attorneys are going to be able to help with one part of that process, and that one part is just getting through that legal, the legality, the process of divorce, the family law courts, knowing what you can and can't do, being able to give you legal advice. But what they can't do and what they don't know is they don't know you or your family or the environment or the history in intimate detail. And so while you're going through this process, blindly trusting an attorney, and good attorneys are going to help you differentiate between what they can and can't do. But what I feel attorneys don't do a great job of is just giving a real specific idea of what this process looks like and what to expect through the process. So that, and so that's where coaching, other professionals will be able to help you that have been either personally through it or work on a regular basis through this process with divorced or divorcing people, because they have for instance, a financial planner might be able to help with the financial piece of that in making decisions on what you're going to do in the divorce, what kind of decision you're going to make in, say, a mediation or in an agreement for the final divorce decree, and how that is going to impact the rest of your life. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that member of the team is going to help, whereas an attorney can say, well, maybe you can do this or maybe you can do that, but they're only talking about it from a narrow perspective of their family law in the systems within that context. So just hiring an attorney, just blindly following an attorney and going through this, which is what I did. I did not surround myself with the team of people that I needed. Didn't have a coach, their therapist, financial planner, all that stuff. And that was a huge, huge detriment, because my attorney, we shouldn't go into all of the attorneys that I've had, but one of the first two attorneys that I had did not take me through that, did not delineate what they can and can't do. And I'll give you an example, just gave some really poor advice. And I feel one of my two original attorneys was disingenuous in the advice that he gave. And one of those was not to get a parental responsibility evaluation. And I remember having the conversation around that and why he felt it wasn't a good idea. And had I had some more supports around other areas of my life in talking about that and making that decision, I feel that I would have made a different decision around that and would have had that done and completed. Again, everything happens for a reason, but I feel that was detrimental. That was a detrimental decision within the context of blindly trusting my attorney, which I did through the entire divorce process, in making the concessions that I did, in making coming to agreements and finalizing the decree. So do not blindly follow your attorney. Question them on everything. That's one of the things that is important through the process. They know the law, so question them to get them, and not to question what the law or what they're doing, but to understand this process. Again, oftentimes they don't do a fantastic job of setting up expectations around what it is that's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what potential scenarios are, et cetera. So then it becomes incumbent upon you to really ask those questions. And if they don't like hearing questions or having to answer your questions, then find an attorney that does. Because again, first time you go through anything, you have lots of questions because it's so uncertain. And anybody that's good, that is a coach, let's say you have a physical fitness coach that's teaching you new exercises and you're asking questions, they're going to be patient with you, and they're going to take that time to make you feel comfortable with the process and what's happening. So first one was I blindly followed my attorney. The second one, and this was during and after my divorce, and that was dating during and soon after my divorce. And so this isn't to say that you can't potentially find somebody and that it will work out, that there may be two people that come together and go through this process and are able to work together and do the healing work that they need, the self-reflection work, in order to understand what the reasons were, perhaps why the relationship ended, and how they can create a better life for themselves, and then also change their behaviors necessary to have a better relationship in the future. What I will say is that it is incredibly challenging, particularly when you're in the middle of this, when you're in the middle of all of this chaos, one relationship's ending, your environment's changing, you have a different dynamic and relationship with your children, you have a different schedule, you have more responsibilities, obviously, because there were two of you handling one household, and now there's one of you handling one household and one of you handling another household. You have full-time responsibility for the kids when they're in your household. And so it is a constant change and flux of environment until you are really able to get solid in what that looks like going forward. And I always say that it takes really the seasons, the 4 seasons, to get through that, to kind of see what it's like to go through the holidays, for instance, on your own with your children. And if you throw in a relationship, and relationships take an immense amount of effort, particularly the beginning of an early relationship, when you're hopefully taking the time to build that foundation in order to have a successful relationship for years to come, which would be, at least in my mind, the goal. Now, that might not be your goal right now. It might just be something else, just to have fun, or to just get back out there, or try to help build self-esteem. But ultimately, I at least would want to have a long-term successful relationship, and building that foundation takes an immense amount of effort and time. And if you have not even done any of the work around understanding what parts you played in the unhealthy relation, or the unhealthy dynamic that may have played out in your marriage that led to the divorce, how are you ever going to know what that is in order to avoid that in your next relationship? And so that's why it's incredibly difficult when you're in the middle of the divorce, in the middle of the breakup. Not to mention there's a million other emotions that are going on. There's grief around multiple different areas of what may be happening with the relationship. So like for me, in ignoring all of this, in ignoring what I just described, which would be being able to take the time to know what it is that I had and what my responsibility was in the unhealthy dynamic that was going on, I just perpetuated that with somebody else, and did not really take the time to do things like grieve. Grieving is a big part of this process. You're going to grieve multiple times. It's not linear. It's not, and when I say multiple times, it's not just that you're grieving the loss of the relationship. You could be grieving the loss of 50% of the time with your children, or whatever that time may have been, or whatever your structure is going to be. There's lots of different processes, and grief is very, very time consuming. It takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of emotions that go through that. And so in throwing in the dynamic of another relationship there, it makes it really, really difficult. And so for me, all that it served to do was to ignore it. So it was, and that was obviously, looking back, for me, by design. I didn't want to look inward. I didn't want to pay attention to what that was. I didn't want to learn and understand. It was, and it eventually was it was incredibly painful and difficult to go through. So, but what I did is I just pushed it off. What you have the opportunity to do is to pay attention to it now, already potentially and likely in a lot of chaos and a lot of pain, a lot of grief or sadness, or many other emotions that are coming up. I highly, highly encourage you to be in those, paying attention to those, and understanding why those are coming up in the context of the end of your existing relationship in your marriage, before jumping into a new relationship and creating a whole new dynamic that might be exactly the same. Because trust me, it took me a long time. And when I say a long time, years, before I stopped and said, why does this dynamic, like first identifying the dynamic and going, why does this dynamic keep coming up in my life? And then saying, well, there's only one common denominator here. And wow, that's me. It can't be every one of the women that I was dating. So if you can do it now, it will be beneficial. If you can avoid dating during divorce or just post-divorce and take that time, I feel like it can be much more beneficial and cut the years off of the time that it's going to take you before you can find another healthy and participate in another healthy relationship. So that was number 2. Number 3 is I did not take seriously taking care of my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual needs first. So I touched on this in the beginning. Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. It's absolutely critical that all 4 of these components, that you're doing the self-care necessary to get those in a good place. We talk about putting your own oxygen mask on first before putting anybody else's on, because you cannot take care of everybody else if you're not taking care of yourself. So for me, I was super dad. I was taking care of everything. I was going to handle it all. And once I did most of that through the marriage, but like I said, then when a marriage ends, then you have a separate households and you're responsible for everything. And gosh darn it, I was going to handle all of that on top of everything else that I had going on. And the thing that I was not paying attention to was, well, am I taking care of my mental state? Am I taking care of my emotional state? Like I said, was I paying attention to those emotions coming up? Nope, I was dating. I was putting those aside, and that may not have been the best thing. It may have been smarter for me to stop and get into therapy or get into coaching or group or something else that would help me to identify some of those emotions, what's coming up, and paying attention. Physical, spiritual, taking care of those. I think probably one of the easiest ones to start with is your physical self. And I know that was the case for me. I had wanted to start getting back into a much better, healthy physical condition than I had been over many, many years. And so jumping into those is oftentimes a real good catalyst for all the other ones, the mental, emotional, and spiritual ones, if you start with just doing some physical activity. But I didn't really do that either. I didn't get into the gym. I didn't exercise as much. I think I had probably I probably did more physical than any of the rest of them, like I mentioned, but not anything that was really, really consistent to make sure that I was taking care of my health, that I was getting enough sleep, that I was eating right, exercising, et cetera, doing all those things that I need to do to take care of myself so that I can then wake up and I can show up for my kiddos and for my family and do what I need to do in order to help them and figure out our environment and go through those 4 seasons, just go through life every single day, right? It's challenging then as a single dad that you're now, you've got all these responsibilities, get them up, get them going, get them out of the house, get them fed, make sure they're on school on time, take them home, homework, and then you got work, and then you've got to take care of yourself. So you've got a time block, you've got to put these systems in place and build these skills around being able to do that. And you've got to prioritize yourself. It might be counterintuitive, especially for those of you who are like me, who thought, oh, taking care of them was the number one priority, which obviously you got to take care of your kids, but taking care of yourself is the number one priority, because if you get sick or you get hurt or you just get to a point where you break down and you can't do it, then you're not going to have the ability to take care of them. So it is counterintuitive, but you have to take care of yourself first. You have to prioritize mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, all of those things. Just start very small with each one of them. It might be a 15-minute walk for physical. And I've had clients that's where we start. 15 minutes a day going for a walk. It's physical, but that also helps with mental, emotional as well. And it can be spiritual. And we just start with that and get that as a routine every single day. And then you build from there. So make sure, pay attention and take seriously your self-care and taking care of yourself first, because that was number 3 for me as to the biggest mistakes that I made during and after my divorce. Number 4 was, and it kind of falls in line with number 3, was not getting the mental health help that I needed immediately. Now, eventually I did. I took that more seriously. But if you have the means to, and this is becoming much more accepted, which I really appreciate in our society in general, for men to get the mental health help that they need. And we've got coming up here in November and all of that, but there's still some stigma around that. And if you grew up in a household like I did, in an environment like I did, then that was something that not only was just not talked about, but may have even been frowned upon if you had talked about saying, hey, I want to get mental health. I know bringing that up to one of my parents when I was in college was met with a great amount and when I say great amount of skepticism, was like, are you sure about that? Which sounds absolutely insane these days to most of us, but that was the skepticism, the level of skepticism that that I was met with. So get the mental health help that you need. Now, if you don't have the means to get into therapy with a therapist or to get a coach that can help talk you through what you've got going on and help you move in a direction that you want, find something that is it can be a group meeting. We've got the group meetings the second and the fourth Saturday of every month at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. The links are in the show notes, and the resources they'll be on the app soon here too, and also up at the website. But the sign up is at our meetup on meetup.com, or you can just contact us through the website and we can get you involved with those. Or if you identify maybe a place where you need some immediate help to stop utilizing the coping mechanisms. And when I'm talking about coping mechanisms, I mean drinking, drug use, maybe overworking, sex, whatever it might be, and you need some help to just stop those behaviors. There's 12-step groups and other help groups that are out there. Codependence Anonymous was a great one that I utilized that will help change your mindset around what you're doing. And that comes back to that self-reflection, taking that time really to self-reflect during this time. We can really think about this. You know, there's some stuff that comes up in life. There's some situations and circumstances that come up during life that really force us to examine our lives. And this time, this divorce time, is truly an opportunity for us to do that, but we need to seize the opportunity. And that's oftentimes scary, especially with the uncertainty that we're going through during this, but it can truly be an opportunity. So I say that to say, don't be afraid to get involved with a 12-step, or if maybe there's a church group. If you're identifying a behavior or something that is detrimental to your life that you feel, or even if it's not detrimental, but you know that if you stop this, if you cut this out of your life, that your life can be even better. Seize this opportunity right now to move in that direction. It just takes one small step to do that, but it will make a huge, huge change in your life. Something else, church groups. If you have a church group or a church community that has some support as well, you can get involved in that. Or I just mentioned Meetup. Meetup has all kinds, meetup.com has all kinds of different groups that get together regular basis for you to get involved with. And that might just be getting together with some other friends that have similar interests so that you have somebody to talk to. That is part of taking care of your mental health. And for me, the one thing I was fortunate and blessed to have was one good friend. So I had an attorney and I had one good friend that I was able to just sit and talk with and share what it was I was feeling. So that it could be as simple as that. And these meetups as well, it could be as simple as going and doing that with other people that you might enjoy an activity or something that is a common interest that will just allow you to talk and have some community with people. So that's number 4. Make sure to get the mental health help that you need. That was something that I didn't do. And finally, the 5th one, and this one is more of around mindset and awareness. And I don't know that there's anything that could have prepared me to really know that this was potentially going to be a mistake. But this is really one that I can say to you that if you're listening, if you listened through this and you've gotten through the previous 4, those might seem kind of like straightforward and duh, which, hey, I always say it takes me a little bit longer to figure some of this stuff out, which is why I'm here now sharing it with you all so that it takes you less time. But this last one was is failing to grasp the impact of the final divorce decree on the next 2 decades of my life. What do I mean specifically about that? I mean that the agreement that you are making, the divorce decree, or whatever you call it in your state, but the final agreement that you're coming to in your divorce is going to impact you and your children for a very long time to come. Now, it's really hard to grasp this when you're in the middle of it, because there is so much going on, and you're kind of thinking in a with the blinders on, like, I want to get through this part and the finances, and I want to get my financials in, and we got to talk about that, or what the child support's going to be, or the support's going to be, or I need to think about the parenting plan and what that's going to be, or I need to figure out what my work schedule is going to be with the kids, and how am I going to get them to school. So there's all these moving components and different things that are going on, and you're thinking about all of these things, and it seems like every day it's like one more thing, and then you're dealing with another thing, and then you're dealing with another thing. And I know that's how I felt. And what I failed to do is really think about ahead what this impact is going to be, or even more positively, think about what I wanted, how I wanted to my life to be. And this is when I talk about the Dad's Guide to Divorce. And if you haven't downloaded that, you can download that at the website. Also, creating that vision and direction in the beginning, starting out saying, okay, well, things are going to change no matter what. What do I want that to look like? What do I want my life to look at? And then work backwards from there, as opposed to working from in the midst of the chaos and trying to create out of the chaos. It's kind of like, taking all the paints and just throwing them all together, than trying to paint a picture, right? Instead of setting them all up, having them all ready, and then thinking about what you want to put onto the canvas. So if you can do that, then that's going to help you a long way in advance, or for the next, depending on how old your children are, because you're never going to be separate from your soon-to-be ex or your ex for a very long time, because you're going to have the children. It's going to be the common thread. You're going to be co-parenting or parallel parenting with that person. So trying to create ahead, trying to envision and create the intention ahead can be really, really helpful, because I'm here to tell you, once this divorce decree gets finalized, that is what you are living with for however long you're going to be parenting your children and co-parenting with your ex. And if there are things that are overlooked, things that you didn't think about, things that are not favorable to you and your children, then that is going to be incredibly challenging over the long haul. And we see this oftentimes with men who get in situations where they are put into very difficult financial straits. Now, I'm not going to go into the court systems and how those can be detrimental to men and have a bias, etc. But I want you to be aware that there are some grave challenges in going through this process, and this is where the attorneys can be helpful, but don't know your whole situation. They can look at numbers, they can look at the worksheets, but it's incumbent upon you to be able to know and to figure out, yes, this will work for me. And I'm not just talking financial, it could be the parenting plan too. It could be many different facets, vacations with the kids, whatever it might be, many different facets of your final divorce agreement that may or may not be beneficial to you and the kids going forward. So again, this might be where it's very counterintuitive for you to say, well, this does not work for me. Oftentimes, I know a lot of you listening, and I get this every week, I just want it to be good. I want to make everybody happy. I want it to be good for the kids, but you don't think about how this is going to impact you and how you need to be able to take care of yourself in order to take care of your kids. So if you put yourself in a very difficult, challenging situation, it's going to be harder for you to be there to financially take care of them, to be present to take care of them, to be thriving and be an example to them of how to be able to thrive. if you put yourself behind the 8 ball by not paying attention to what is going on and what you're agreeing to in the final divorce settlement. So make sure, again, this is not something you probably even think about. It was not something I thought about, and I'll be honest, I just wanted to get it done. It dragged on for so long and was so difficult, was so painful, was so expensive, was just so wearing and challenging. But I promise you that if you stay strong through it and you stay true to your convictions, to your values, to your beliefs, and if you can work with a coach or you can work with a therapist or hopefully both and create that intention of what you want and work through that through the decree and hopefully with your ex, whether you do it amicably out of court or if you have to go to court and go to trial to fight for what you need for yourself and for your kids, you're going to be much happier and you're going to put yourself in a much better position going forward for those years to come, potentially decades to come. So think about that, decades to come. These decisions, these 12 months, maybe 12 months that you've got that you have to get through, you can get through these and you can stay strong through these in order to set yourself up and your family up and your kiddos up for the decades to come. So make sure to pay attention to that. So let me recap my 5 biggest mistakes I made during and after my divorce. Number 1 was blindly trusting my attorney. Number 2 was dating during and after divorce. Number 3 was not taking seriously my self-care and taking care of my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual needs first. Number 4 was not getting the mental health help that I needed as soon as possible. And number 5 was failing to grasp the impact of the final divorce decree on the next 2 decades of my life. All right. Well, hopefully these 5 mistakes, in talking through these with you, will help you to avoid them, excuse me, or at the very least, pay attention to them a little bit. If you found some value in this, please share it with some other divorced or divorcing dads. Please give us a like, or even better, give us a comment that helps us immensely, or even better than that, you can help us and you can help us grow the community. Like I said, we're building apps, we're building more stuff. We have a Patreon account. You can support us through the Patreon account. That would be really incredibly helpful to building out some of this stuff. And just continue to share, continue to show up, continue to listen, and get this word out. I really appreciate you listening. I will talk to you next week, and God bless.